Hey folks, let's talk about a video game, and a video game that I spent more time and more days playing through on stream than I thought I was going to. Uh, yeah, there's a bit to this one. It'll be interesting to try and talk about it. Tunic. So I'd heard good things about this. It is an isometric um, game, and it mechanically it is taking its cues. I would say primarily from things like Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past or Minish Cap, sort of that era of Zelda games. I think for a more recent comparison, maybe Death's Door would also be a decent comparison for the mechanics on this game. It is a bit more of an exploration game than, say, Death's Door was, and I think that's actually to its benefit. Because one of the things that would frequently tick me off playing Death's Door is that it would hide stuff in the world geometry, which is something you can do in isometric because of the angle that everything's at. There's a path that you can't see because there's literally something blocking it there. And Death's Door did it infrequently enough that I wasn't in the habit of looking for them. So every now and then I get stuck and it would turn out that it was like in the shadows or behind this thing that I didn't think to check. Tunic, by contrast, is way more exploration focused, and as a result, almost any spot in the game where you go, they might have hidden something behind there. They probably did. Not 100% of the time, but often enough that it was worth checking every time. Because like it just feels like, oh yeah, no, let's double check that. Whereas in Death's Door, it happened infrequently enough that I never built the habit of checking every time. And if I had been checking every time, I would have felt like I was wasting my time because it wasn't happening that often. Happens here a fair bit, and that actually gets into the flow of it, even though it's funny. That's like a game development approach that works worse if you don't do it as much. Like if you're gonna do it, which Tunic does. The aesthetic is largely cute. You're playing a cute little fox boy. And the world, again, is very kind of the atmosphere of something like Link to the Past, the light world, anyways, at least when you start. There are enemies around, and there is combat. It's not the most complicated combat in the world, but there is enough to it that, especially when you get to boss fights, like you're gonna need a couple of run-ups on a lot of these bosses. They are no slouches, but they also aren't really like puzzle bosses the way Zelda can sometimes be, where you have to pick the right item, otherwise you can't really beat it. No, they're a bit more straightforward, and you might decide, what skills or items or abilities you have that are going to be most helpful in this situation. But I think that's going to come a lot more down to personal taste and what you find works for you. It also has a certain amount of Metroidvania aspects in that one of the classic elements of Metroidvania is acquiring new traversal abilities and then using those in old areas to reach new parts of it. And this does have that because it has things like a grappling hook, and there's later on there's a dash that lets you sort of traverse certain small areas, and this like opens things up in a way that makes you go, ooh, I saw that thing that like will interact with this, or that I can now use that, and you go back and you get that kind of rewarding sensation. The plot is a little bit sort of Dark Soulsy in terms of how it's delivered. There's not technically no spoken dialogue. There's effectively no spoken dialogue. There is a fair bit of lore, but it doesn't feel like it's dumping it on you the way that games taking influence from that genre can often feel like. And I've frequently said I care more about story than I do lore. That is less a problem for me in a video game setting where I have the mechanics to interact with. So it's not like we're losing plot for the sake of lore. Lore is just dropped around as you play through. There were a couple of revelations about some of what was going on that definitely did hit me and make me go, oh, good. Okay. There was one in specific that is definitely a spoiler, so I don't want to say that right off. Here's why this game's kind of hard to talk about. Because while I can describe sort of the base level mechanics and compare it to a few things, ultimately, Tunic is about figuring out what Tunic is about. That's kind of the point of the game. One of the core elements of it is that you are finding pages to the manual for this game. And I mean that very literally. You start out, it tells you nothing. There's no tutorial or anything like that. And you start to find these pages in what is very much a recreation of an original NES style instruction booklet, complete like with the memos pages in the back for you to fill in your own stuff. But the thing is, the pages of that instruction booklet are mostly in a made-up pictographic language. I'm not going to go so far as to say as you are intended to translate this language. I'm sure some people have. The impression is much more you are meant to look at the images and the occasional word, or sometimes, boy, rare occasions you get a sentence in English to figure out what it is you're doing. There are whole mechanics, like what are ultimately basic mechanics, the kind of thing you'd expect to be tutorialized on within the first 10 minutes of most games, that you will not realize you can do until you have acquired a page, stared at it for a while, and realized, oh, this means that I could do that the whole time? That's kind of what the game is. And I will say that experience is very rewarding. When you've spent a little while going, I don't know what the game wants from me next, and you spend like 5 minutes looking through the pages you have and just looking more intensely at stuff that maybe you glossed over before, and suddenly something clicks and you go, wait a minute. Like, it's really rewarding, that feeling. And this game, as an experience, is kind of designed around wanting to give players that feeling of figuring something out and feeling rewarded in your own head for having figured that out. And of course, you're also rewarded with more gameplay because you'll find an item or uncover a whole mechanic that is going to be helpful, or find a new area or whatever. But it's that, it's that feeling that this game is looking to invoke. And when it does, it feels really, really good. And it is the reason why this is hard to talk about in any more specifics. I will say that I got through the majority of the game without looking things up, I think more than once or twice. And by and large, when I looked stuff up, it was because I knew what was going on. I just didn't have the patience to like go through the steps of it. So like, I think this is something I can get away with saying. There's like these certain things that you get that impact your character. Like maybe you move a little faster. Maybe when you, when you're low on health, your defense goes up, or stuff like that. You find them as you go. And while a couple of them have some degree of description in the manual, some of them don't, or it's described in a way where like, I don't know what that means. And if I'd wanted to, I could have trial and errored equipping each one to figure out what it did. I didn't have the patience to do that, so I did just look them up. But I looked them up after figuring out, okay, each one has a unique attribute. I know that. I figured that out myself. I just want to know what they do, though. And that was sort of, and for me at least, that is looking up stuff in a way that doesn't ruin the experience of what this is. I'm sure there are some people who say, like, don't look up literally anything, you'll wreck the experience. I'm not of that mind. I'm of the mind of, if you know what it is that the game, like you figured out how to figure the thing out, but the actual nuts and bolts of doing the thing that you figured out is going to infuriate, frustrate, or drag it down for you, I don't think there's a problem in looking that up. Like another example is there's this whole aspect towards the back end that I looked up actually a fair amount, because there are all these elements where you realize the meaning of certain things and you sort of come back and you do a specific set of things at that setting to accomplish something. I'm sorry I have to talk in such vague terms. The thing is, I felt that rush of aha at figuring out like the places where I needed to do this sort of thing. But in some of the instances, like the nuts and bolts of the specific of what I had to do, I saw what I was going to have to do to figure that out. And the back end, especially, like I'm talking like last quarter, fifth of the game, a lot of it kind of boiled down to, oh, I should have been taking notes throughout, and I haven't. And the fact that I haven't is going to make this a slog. And that's the thing. That's the trick with puzzles is I'm trying to think who talked about it. I think it was Jermate over on Second Wind in one of his games on developing. But like there's this thing in puzzle type games, and this has a lot of puzzle elements, where you don't want a massive gap between the aha moment of figuring out what you need to do and then actually accomplishing what that is. The more time there is between you mentally figuring out and then having to do the logistics of it diminishes the satisfaction in a lot of cases. And I agree with that. And so I didn't have a lot of shame in looking up as much as I did on the back half, because honestly, a lot of it, some of it I might have figured out with time. I think some of it I was never going to get. And by then I was just trying to get like the true ending. I don't think it's a spoiler to say there's more than one ending to this. Again, like that's a pretty standard thing in a lot of games at this point. Like heck, freaking Ender Lilies did that. Multiple endings. You could get one of them by accident, and I did. But this game is rewarding, especially if you are old enough or enough of a retro gamer to have played the kind of games that mechanically it's drawing influence from. It's very rewarding to figure out what's at play, how it works, what you can do, and then how to use it. Like, it's really, really rewarding. And I say without shame that I looked up a lot of walkthroughs in like my last hour of play on this. I personally have no shame with that. And I don't think the amount of time I would have spent trying to figure it out for myself would have made it feel better. That's me. Like, if you got through this whole thing without ever looking up a walkthrough, power to you. You are a different kind of gamer with a different mentality than I have, and that's fine. But I am always someone who validates the notion of it's okay to just look stuff up. This is a game where I would say be careful and don't jump to looking things up, because the most satisfying part of the game is that aha for figuring it out. But if you feel legit stuck, or if you've gotten enough that you definitely know what the game wants from you, but you don't know how to accomplish it, I don't think it's the end of the world to look something up. Just try and be selective about it, because that aha moment is the best feeling from this game. I think I'll talk a little bit, spoilers, not a ton. I really just want to talk about the one aspect of the plot that made me go, oh, God. So that's your spoiler warning. So I can only think of them as the power pillars. You go up to them and you hold A for 3 seconds, and it sort of powers up and sinks in, and like it activates a bunch of stuff. And I've been doing that for a little bit, and then got to, I don't know what it's officially called. I'm thinking of it as the factory floor, and realizing there are trapped spirits inside those things. That alone was kind of a, oh, geez moment. But then when I heard one of those things scream and recognized it and went, oh my God, that is the same noise that these pillars make when I activate them. I'm torturing these. If not killing these things when I activate these, I'm at least torturing them. And I have been the whole time, and I didn't realize it. And that's a tricky thing to pull on a player, because I think it's not impossible to make work, but it is a tricky thing to make a player feel guilty for something the game told them to do. And like, while the game doesn't tutorialize, like, you can't get to this point in the game without having been activating those pillars. So like, the game mechanically has told you need to do this, and now it's going to make you feel bad for something it told you to do that wasn't optional. That can make a player turn on you, but like in this case, it did just make me feel like, oh, like I felt bad, but I didn't resent the game for it. So I feel like they balanced that pretty well. I have seen both endings. I've seen the ending that you get from fighting the air and then just taking its place, and I've gotten the true ending. And actually, what I really like is I like the difference in music during the end credits and how vastly different they feel, and that felt nice. And I haven't shouted out the music yet. Music on this is gorgeous. The overall atmosphere is really, really terrific and reminds me of a lot of my favorite locations in like 16-bit fantasy kind of games. You know, whether it be the woods in Chrono Trigger, or whether it be parts of the overworld in Link to the Past, like it or whole swaths of Secret of Mana. It just gave me that, oh, this is just nice feeling. This game's quite good. I do like it. Tunic! What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. Enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, and subscribe. Those all help me out. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Zubin Lopfula, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Andre, Becky Sparks, Claire Wright, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Toku Blahuvian, Adam RDL Taylor, Pal Barabajoggle, Mary Mello, Mira G, Sir Didymus is my favorite. I've never screwed that one up before. Well, if you want to hear me mess up your name, check out the rewards on the Patreon. I'm going to blame you.